When you look at Rule 15, it's a little daunting. Here's the easy way to handle Rule 15. Realize that each subpart of the rule, and we're going to focus on 15A, B, and C, deals with a completely separate set of facts. 15A, let's take that first. 15A gives us three very nice rules, and they're very, very straightforward. The first rule is this: the plaintiff has a right to amend once before the defendant serves her answer. Plaintiff has a right to amend, but only once. You only have a right to do this once before the defendant serves her answer. You'll find this in 15A1A. 15A1A. And in the words of the rule, it says you have a right to amend once before you're served with a responsive pleading. But remember, the responsive pleading is the answer. So here's a great, great hypo. Perfect hypo for a law school exam, the kind of tricky thing a professor likes to do. Plaintiff files the case, goes ahead and files the complaint, and has the defendant served with process. Then the defendant makes a motion to dismiss, let's say for lack of personal jurisdiction. While that motion is pending before the court rules on it, the plaintiff amends the complaint. Did the plaintiff have a right to do this? And the answer is yes, because this rule, 15A1A, says the plaintiff has a right to amend once before the defendant serves her answer. She did not serve an answer, she served a motion, and a motion is not an answer. A motion is not a responsive pleading. So it did not extinguish the right of the plaintiff to amend. The second rule in 15A is this: the defendant has a right to amend once within 20 days after serving her answer. The defendant has a right to amend once within 20 days of serving her answer. So, for example, the defendant serves an answer, goes ahead and files it, serves that answer, and then a few days later says, oh no, I left out an affirmative defense. I want to add the affirmative defense. May she do so? Yes, as long as she does it within 20 days after serving that answer. She has a right to amend. You'll find that in 15A1B. A1B. There's one other rule in 15A that we need to flag. You'll find it in 15A2. And it covers the situation before trial where we do not have a right to amend. It did not meet 15A1A or A1B. Here, the party simply asks the court for permission to amend. You just ask for leave of court, for permission to amend. And notice what the rule says under 15A2. It tells us just how liberal the philosophy of these rules are. These rules are very liberal because it says the court should freely give leave when justice so requires. When justice so requires, we should give leave to amend. And every impulse of the federal rules, remember, is that we want to decide cases on the merits and not on some technicality, not because somebody messed up this or that little nuance, but we want to get down to the merits. That does not mean that there's no limit. Of course there's a limit. And the factors that a court would look at are usually delay and prejudice. The court will not let you amend if you've delayed too long or if it's going to prejudice the other side. There was a good example of this decided by the Supreme Court back in 2000. It's a case called Nelson versus Adams. In that case, they went all the way through trial, and the plaintiff won a judgment against the sole defendant. There was only one defendant, and it was a corporation. And the plaintiff won a big judgment after trial against that corporation. Then it turns out that the corporation had no money, so there was nothing from which the plaintiff could recover. The plaintiff then, after trial, sought leave to amend to add a different defendant, to add an individual who happened to be the person behind the scenes who really ran that corporation and had all the dough. And the plaintiff sought leave to amend to put that new defendant in there and then collect the judgment from the new defendant. And the trial court let him do this, even though the amendment was after judgment. The Supreme Court reversed that, and quite rightly so. The